The Council abandoned humanity, so we chose strength over peace. Earth had been part of the Galactic Council for less than 30 years when the Krell invasion began. Humans had been excited to join the community of advanced alien species. They thought membership would bring protection, new technology, and a bright future among the stars. They were wrong. Commander Jack Mason stood on the bridge of the USS Defender, his face grim as he watched the main screen. A massive fleet of alien ships moved slowly through Saturn's rings, heading directly toward Earth. The ships were dark and sharp-edged, like floating daggers against the blackness of space. Their design was nothing like the smooth, elegant vessels of Council races. These were built for one purpose: war. How many? Jack asked, his voice steady despite the fear building in his chest. Lieutenant Frank Adams checked his station again. Over 200 large warships, sir. Thousands of smaller craft. They're definitely Krell. Jack nodded. Everyone had heard of the Krell, a violent, expansionist species from the outer rim of the galaxy. They weren't part of the Council, and they didn't care about galactic laws or peace treaties. They wanted resources and territory, and they took them by force. Send another emergency signal to Council headquarters, Jack ordered. Make it clear this is a full-scale invasion, not a border dispute. This was the third urgent message they had sent. The previous two had received only automated responses. Jack tried to stay hopeful. The Council had to respond. The Mutual Defense Agreement was the main reason Earth had joined in the first place. At Council headquarters, Ambassador Laura Wright paced the small waiting room outside the main chamber. She had been there for 6 hours, demanding an emergency session. Her normally perfect appearance was disheveled, her blonde hair falling loose from its neat bun, dark circles under her blue eyes. When the doors finally opened, Laura rushed into the grand circular chamber. Representatives from over 50 advanced civilizations sat in rising tiers around the room. Many seats were empty. Less than half of the Council members had bothered to attend. The Avrilian delegate, a tall, blue-skinned humanoid, spoke first. His voice echoed through the chamber with practiced formality. The Council recognizes the human representative. You may present your case. Laura stepped to the center of the room. Earth is under attack by a massive Krell invasion force. We formally request immediate military assistance under Article 7 of the Mutual Defense Treaty. She activated a holographic display showing the Krell fleet's position and strength. Our defenses cannot hold against a force of this size. We need the Council fleet now. Murmurs filled the chamber. The representatives leaned toward each other, whispering. Laura waited, hope fading with each passing second. Finally, the Avrilian spoke again. The Council has reviewed the data. After careful consideration, we have determined that intervention would destabilize the greater galactic community. Laura couldn't believe what she was hearing. What? Earth's conflict with the Krell is classified as a regional dispute and does not qualify for collective defense measures. Laura's hands shook with anger. Regional dispute? They have sent an armada. This is clearly an invasion that falls under Article 7. The Avrilian's expression didn't change. The Krell have claimed they are responding to human expansion in what they consider their territory. This makes it a border dispute, not an unprovoked attack. That's absurd, Laura shouted, forgetting diplomatic protocol. We have never entered Krell space. They're on the other side of the galaxy. The Council's decision is final, the Avrilian said coldly. We recommend diplomatic negotiations with the Krell leadership. In that moment, Laura understood the truth. Earth was expendable. Their technology was primitive compared to the ancient civilizations that controlled Council politics. Their territory had few valuable resources. Humans were newcomers, barely worth protecting. You're abandoning us, she said, her voice now quiet but filled with anger. The Avrilian tilted his head. The Council is maintaining galactic stability. Individual members must sometimes manage their own regional conflicts. Laura looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative. Some looked away in shame. Others stared back without emotion. None offered support. Earth joined the Council in good faith, Laura said. We followed your rules, limited our weapons development, shared our resources, and now when we need you, You hide behind politics. This session is concluded, the Avrilian announced, ignoring her words. Laura's hands clenched into fists as she left the chamber. She went straight to the communication center to send a message to Earth. The Council had betrayed them. Humanity was on its own. Back on Earth, General Alan Blackwood received Laura's message in the Pentagon's crisis room. Military leaders from around the world watched his face darken as he read it. The Council has refused to help, he announced. They've classified the Krell invasion as a regional dispute that doesn't qualify for defense under the treaty. Colonel Helen Reed slammed her hand on the table. They can't do that. We've seen the Krell fleet. This is no border dispute. General Blackwood's expression was grim. They can, and they have. Ambassador Wright believes they consider us expendable. Silence filled the room as this news sank in. Earth's military forces were substantial by human standards but primitive compared to Krell technology. The Council's advanced weapons could have evened the odds. Without them, the situation seemed hopeless. If we try peaceful negotiations now, we're finished, General Blackwood said finally. The Krell don't negotiate, they conquer. He stood straighter, his voice growing stronger. The Council has shown their true colors. From this moment forward, Earth stands alone and we will not go quietly. He turned to his communications officer. Contact Dr. Kate Sullivan at the Nova Project. Tell her she has full authorization to proceed with all research. No restrictions. Colonel Reed looked surprised. Sir, the Council specifically prohibited that level of weapons development. General Blackwood's face hardened. The Council abandoned us. Their rules no longer apply. Survival is our only directive now. In her underground laboratory, Dr. Kate Sullivan received the authorization with mixed feelings. For years, her team had been developing advanced technology based on principles they had glimpsed in Council science. The Nova Project had always been kept small and secret, operating on the edges of what Earth's treaty with the Council allowed. Now, with authorization to ignore all restrictions, Kate could finally explore ideas that had been deemed too dangerous before. What's our status? She asked her lead engineer, Paul Davis. Paul brought up displays showing various projects in development. With the new authorization, we can fast-track the quantum weapon system and the genetic enhancement program. Kate nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. Start full production on the prototype shields. Move the biotech team to Facility B where they'll have more space, and pull all the data we have on Krell physiology. She looked around at her team of brilliant scientists and engineers. They were humanity's best hope now. The Council thought keeping us dependent would keep us controlled, she said. They never imagined we would need to stand alone. But humans have always been at their best when backed into a corner. She turned back to her work with new determination. We have something the Krell and the Council have forgotten, the will to survive against impossible odds. They've abandoned us to die. Instead, we'll show them what humanity is truly capable of. Above Earth, the first Krell ships entered orbit. The war for humanity's survival had begun. The Council abandoned humanity, so we chose strength over peace. 6 months had passed since the Krell invasion began. Earth was burning. Major cities lay in ruins, their once proud skylines reduced to twisted metal and concrete. Military bases had been targeted first, followed by power plants and communication centers. The remaining human forces had retreated to hardened underground facilities scattered across the globe. But humanity refused to surrender. In a hidden facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Kate Sullivan worked without rest. Dark circles shadowed her eyes and her brown hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She hadn't seen the sun in weeks. None of that mattered now. Only the work mattered. Show me the test results again, she said to her assistant, Paul Davis. Paul brought up a holographic display showing data from their latest experiment. The numbers were promising. They had successfully reverse-engineered a power cell from a downed Krell ship. Its energy output was 10 times greater than anything humans had built before. It works, Paul said, smiling for the first time in days. We can adapt this to power the prototype shields. Kate nodded, already thinking about the next step. What about the weapon system? Almost there. We figured out how their beam weapons focus energy. With a few more tests, we can build our own version. This was the pattern of their days now, taking alien technology from captured or destroyed Krell ships, figuring out how it worked and adapting it for human use. The Council had always restricted Earth's access to advanced technology, claiming humans weren't ready. Now Kate and her team were proving just how quickly humans could learn when their survival depended on it. The Council restricted our development because they feared us, Kate told her team during a rare break. Not because our technology was dangerous, but because they recognized our potential to advance quickly. She looked at the tired faces around her. They were right to fear us. We've accomplished in 6 months what should have taken decades. Far from Kate's lab, Captain Greg Porter and his Special Forces team moved silently through the ruins of what had once been Chicago. Each soldier wore experimental armor that looked like a second skin, a combination of flexible plates and dark fabric that could change color to match the surroundings. It was based on Krell bioarmor but modified for human use. Greg signaled his team to stop as they reached their target, a Krell supply depot set up in the remains of a sports stadium. Through his enhanced binoculars, he could see Krell soldiers, moving supplies from large containers to smaller vehicles. The aliens were tall and powerful, with 4 arms and tough gray skin. Their eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. 6 months ago, the sight of these creatures had filled humans with terror. Now Greg felt only cold determination. His team had fought the Krell many times. They had learned how the aliens thought, how they fought, and most importantly, how they died. "Remember the plan," Greg whispered to his team. "We plant the charges, then draw them away from the depot. When they chase us into the tunnel system, we detonate." His second-in-command, Sergeant Linda Cooper, checked her weapon one last time. "Just like Dallas," she said. Greg nodded. In Dallas, they had destroyed a Krell command center and killed over 50 of the aliens with a similar tactic. It was one of many successful missions that had slowly begun to turn the tide. "They expected us to fight conventionally and die conventionally," Greg told his soldiers. "But they've never faced humans with their backs against the wall." The mission went perfectly. The Krell supply depot erupted in flames that could be seen for miles. 30 Krell soldiers died in the explosion or the ambush that followed. Greg's team suffered no casualties. As they made their way back to their hidden base, Greg thought about how much had changed. Before the invasion, he had been a regular army captain, following orders and protocols. Now he led a team of enhanced soldiers using alien technology and guerrilla tactics the military would never have approved in peacetime. Necessity had changed them all. In Geneva, Switzerland, Laura Wright no longer wore the formal clothes of an ambassador. The Council had recalled all Earth representatives after humanity began ignoring technology restrictions. Laura now wore simple, black clothing better suited for her new role, establishing underground networks with sympathetic alien species. Not all Council members had agreed with the decision to abandon Earth. Some had even tried to send help secretly. These allies were crucial now, providing intelligence about Krell movements and weaknesses. Laura met her latest contact in the basement of a partially destroyed library. The alien called himself Nyx and belonged to a species called the Vrel. He looked almost human except for his silver eyes and the faint blue tint to his skin. "I bring information," Nyx said, his voice a soft whisper. "The Krell are vulnerable to a specific frequency of sound. It disrupts their neural pathways temporarily." He handed Laura a small device. "This contains the exact frequency range. Your scientist can use it to create a weapon." Laura thanked him. "Why are you helping us? The Council forbids interference." Nyx's silver eyes hardened. "The Council abandoned my world too, centuries ago. Many of us remember. We believe the Council must change or be replaced. Humanity might be the force that finally makes that happen." As Laura transmitted this new information to Kate Sullivan's team, military leaders around the world continued to fight. In the last secure military complex in North America, General Alan Blackwood directed operations from a room filled with screens showing battlefields across the globe. "Status report," he demanded from his officers. Colonel Helen Reed pointed to a map of North America. We've pushed the Krell back in 3 sectors. Captain Porter's team destroyed a major supply depot last night. Dr. Sullivan reports the first shield generators will be ready for testing next week. General Blackwood nodded. Small victories were adding up. The Krell had expected to conquer Earth within weeks. 6 months later, they faced increasingly effective resistance. We're ready to implement the new strategy. Colonel Reed continued. Simultaneous attacks on all major Krell strongholds using the new weapons and tactics. It was a bold plan that many called impossible. Coordinated attacks across the globe using reverse-engineered Krell technology combined with human innovation. But impossible was becoming a meaningless word. Humans were doing impossible things every day just to survive. Proceed, General Blackwood ordered. And send a message to all commanders. The Krell came here expecting an easy victory over a primitive species. Instead, they found humanity. And humanity does not break. In orbit around Earth, Commander Jack Mason watched the planet from the bridge of his new ship. The USS Defender had been destroyed in the early days of the invasion. Jack now commanded the USS Vengeance, the first warship equipped with technology that the Council had classified as too dangerous for younger species to possess. The quantum displacement drive hummed beneath his feet, a sound that would have been impossible 6 months ago. His crew no longer wore the bright uniforms of Earth's space fleet. They wore adaptive combat suits integrated with neural enhancers that connected them directly to their stations. Krell fleet detected approaching from the far side of the moon, his tactical officer reported. Jack smiled grimly. Perfect. They don't know we can see them yet. The new sensors, based on Council technology that humans had been denied, could detect ships at 5 times the range of previous systems. Prepare the main weapon, Jack ordered. Let's show them what humanity has learned. As the first shots of the counterattack lit up space around Earth, a message was transmitted to what remained of the Galactic Council. It came from Laura Wright, but spoke for all of humanity. You abandoned us to die. Instead, you created something far more dangerous, humanity with nothing left to lose. The Council abandoned humanity, so we chose strength over peace. 1 year after the invasion began, humanity had transformed itself. The peaceful spacefaring civilization that had eagerly joined the Galactic Council no longer existed. In its place stood a race of survivors and warriors, united by a single purpose: victory at any cost. Commander Jack Mason stood on the bridge of the USS Vengeance, watching as his fleet of 12 advanced warships moved into position around a Krell base on Mars. Only a year ago, humans had operated just a handful of simple ships for exploration and transport. Now they commanded vessels powered by quantum technology that the Council had kept hidden from younger species. All ships report ready, sir, said his communications officer, Lisa Reeves. Her hands moved quickly over her console, the neural implants at her temples glowing softly as she connected directly with the ship's systems. Jack nodded. Begin the attack. The human fleet fired as one. Beams of concentrated energy cut through the Krell defenses like they were made of paper. On the surface of Mars, explosions bloomed like fiery flowers. The battle lasted less than 20 minutes. When it was over, the Krell base was destroyed, and 3 enemy ships had been captured intact for study. Send teams to secure the technology, Jack ordered. Especially their communications systems. We need to know what they're telling their homeworld. His second-in-command, Ben Harris, looked at the screen showing the destroyed base. Remember when we thought Krell tech was so far beyond ours? Jack smiled slightly. The Council wanted to keep us dependent and controlled. They never expected us to advance so quickly when left with no choice. Within days, the captured Krell communication system revealed important news. The invaders had requested reinforcements from their home systems. The war was far from over. On Earth, Dr. Kate Sullivan had moved beyond merely copying Krell technology. Her team now created new innovations by combining alien science with human ingenuity. In her underground laboratory, she demonstrated the latest breakthrough to General Alan Blackwood and a group of military leaders. This is Simon Wells, Kate said, introducing a young soldier who stood at attention nearby. He volunteered for the Phoenix program 3 months ago. Simon stepped forward, looking perfectly normal in his standard uniform. But when Kate gave a command, his body changed. His skin hardened and took on a slight metallic sheen. His eyes shifted color, becoming better adapted for seeing in darkness. The enhancements are now fully integrated with his nervous system, Kate explained. He can control them at will, activating only what he needs in different situations. General Blackwood looked impressed but troubled. Before the invasion, we would never have approved genetic modification of soldiers. Kate nodded. Many of our ethical constraints have changed out of necessity. Simon can now match a Krell in strength and endurance while keeping his human creativity and tactical thinking. She pulled up displays showing dozens of similar volunteers. The first Phoenix units are ready for deployment. They can operate in environments that would kill normal humans, including the methane atmosphere the Krell have created in some occupied territories. Simon spoke up. We chose this, sir. We want to protect what's left of our world. His simple statement summed up the feeling across Earth. Everyone contributed to the war effort in whatever way they could. Children scavenged materials from ruins. Elderly engineers came out of retirement to design weapons. Farmers grew food in protected underground facilities. Captain Greg Porter, now a major, led a team of Phoenix soldiers into what had once been New York City. The Krell had established a major stronghold there, using the remains of skyscrapers as nesting sites for their air forces. Greg's team moved through the ruined streets without making a sound. Their enhanced bodies allowed them to jump between buildings and climb vertical walls with ease. Each soldier carried weapons reverse-engineered from Krell technology, but improved with human modifications. Remember the plan, Greg told his team, through their neural communication system. We plant the sonic disruptors at these 5 points, then trigger them simultaneously. When the Krell are disoriented, we attack from multiple directions. This tactic had been developed based on intelligence from Laura Wright's alien contacts. The Krell had a weakness. A specific frequency of sound disrupted their neural pathways, leaving them confused and vulnerable for short periods. The mission succeeded perfectly. When the sonic weapons activated, the Krell soldiers stumbled and dropped their weapons, unable to coordinate their forearms. Greg's team moved in quickly, eliminating the confused aliens with precise shots. Within hours, they had captured the entire stronghold with minimal human casualties. Similar attacks happened simultaneously across the globe. In London, Rio de Janeiro, Beijing, and a dozen other occupied cities, Phoenix teams struck with carefully planned precision. For the first time since the invasion began, the Krell were retreating. General Blackwood smiled as reports of victories came in from around the world. His strategy, what analysts called the impossible strategy, was working. Coordinated attacks on every major Krell stronghold worldwide, using technologies and tactics the aliens had never encountered. They thought we'd be easy prey, he told Colonel Helen Reed as they studied the global battle map. They didn't expect us to adapt so quickly or fight so effectively. Helen nodded. The question is, what happens when their reinforcements arrive? In space, that question was already being answered. Commander Jack Mason's fleet intercepted a message from a Krell scout ship that had just entered the solar system. A massive reinforcement fleet was only weeks away. How many ships? Jack asked his intelligence officer. At least 300 large warships, sir. 5 times what we fought in the initial invasion. Jack considered this news calmly. A year ago, such odds would have seemed impossible to overcome. But humans were no longer the same people they had been. Their technology, tactics, and even their bodies had evolved under the pressure of war. Alert Earth Command, he ordered. We'll need every ship we can muster. And tell Dr. Sullivan we need any new weapons she can provide. Meanwhile, Laura Wright received an unexpected message from her alien contacts. The Council was taking notice of the conflict again, but not in the way humans had originally hoped. The Council observers are alarmed, Nix told her during a secret meeting. Not by the Krell invasion, but by humanity's response to it. Laura wasn't surprised. What specifically concerns them? Everything. Nick said. Your technological advancement rate, the genetic modifications, the weapons you've developed. The Avrilian delegate has reported that humans are employing technologies that violate numerous council prohibitions. Laura laughed bitterly. They abandoned us to die. Did they expect us to follow their rules while fighting for our survival? Nix shook his head. They expected you to lose, to be conquered or destroyed. They never imagined you would not only survive, but thrive and advance so rapidly under pressure. He paused. They fear what you're becoming. Laura sent this information to Earth's leadership along with a message of her own. The Council is watching again. Too late, they realize their mistake. By abandoning humanity to the Krell, they removed all incentives for us to follow Council restrictions. We've become exactly what they feared, a rapidly advancing species with no allegiance to their established order. As the Krell reinforcement fleet approached, Earth prepared for the greatest battle yet. But something had changed in the hearts and minds of humans everywhere. The fear that had gripped them during the early days of the invasion was gone. In its place was a grim determination and something else, pride. They had been abandoned to die. Instead, they had chosen strength. And with that strength came the power to determine their own future among the stars. The Council abandoned humanity, so we chose strength over peace. 2 years into the war, the tide had turned completely. Humanity not only survived, but pushed the Krell back on all fronts. The invaders who had expected an easy conquest now faced defeat. Their reinforcement fleet had arrived 6 months ago, but even that massive force had failed to overcome Earth's defenses. In orbit around Earth, a meeting took place that would have seemed impossible 2 years earlier. Commander Jack Mason, representing Earth's space forces, faced a Krell commander across a table in a neutral ship provided by Nix and other sympathetic aliens. The Krell commander, named Krazak according to the translator, looked less imposing than Jack had expected. His gray skin had a sickly tint, and his 4 arms moved restlessly, a sign of stress in his species. Your terms, Krazak said, his translated voice flat and mechanical. Jack kept his face expressionless. Complete withdrawal of all Krell forces from the Sol system. Return of all human prisoners. A formal agreement that Krell ships will never again enter our space. Krazak's glowing eyes narrowed. You demand much for a species that was nearly conquered. Nearly isn't enough, Jack replied. You failed. Your invasion force has been reduced to less than 30% of its original strength. Your supply lines are cut. Your reinforcement fleet is crippled. He leaned forward. We can continue this war until no Krell remain in our system. Or you can leave now with what's left of your forces. The Krell commander stared at Jack for a long moment. How? How did you advance so quickly? Our report said humans were primitive, barely able to travel between planets in their own system. Jack almost smiled. We adapt. When faced with extinction, we found strength we didn't know we had. After the meeting, Jack returned to the USS Vengeance to report to Earth Command. The Krell had agreed to withdraw. The war wasn't officially over, but for the first time in 2 years, Earth could breathe easier. On the surface, Major Greg Porter stood in what had once been Central Park in New York City. His Phoenix soldiers had just finished clearing the last Krell nest from the area. The park was unrecognizable. The trees burned away and the ground scarred by weapons fire. But it was Earth's again. Greg touched the communication device in his ear. Central Park secure. No Krell life signs detected. Similar reports came in from around the world as Phoenix teams completed their missions. Paris, Tokyo, Sydney, one by one, Earth's great cities were being reclaimed. Greg's second-in-command, Linda Cooper, joined him. Like all Phoenix soldiers, her body had been enhanced, making her stronger and faster than any normal human. But the changes went deeper than physical improvements. They had all been changed by the war in ways that couldn't be seen. Do you think they're really leaving? Linda asked. Greg looked up at the sky, where the lights of ships could sometimes be seen moving in orbit. They don't have a choice. We've destroyed too many of their forces. They need to cut their losses. What happens next? Do we go back to normal life? Greg didn't answer immediately. He wasn't sure normal existed anymore. The world had been transformed by the invasion. Cities lay in ruins. Millions had died. Those who survived had been changed forever, either physically through programs like Phoenix or mentally by the experience of fighting for survival. We rebuild, he said finally. But we stay ready. The Krell might be leaving, but the galaxy is full of threats. In her laboratory, Dr. Kate Sullivan received news of the Krell agreement with mixed feelings. Relief, certainly, but also concern about what would happen to all the advancements her team had made. Before the invasion, Earth governments had placed strict limits on genetic modification, artificial intelligence, and quantum technology. Would those limits return in peacetime? Kate looked around at her team of scientists and engineers. They had accomplished what most would have called impossible just 2 years ago. They had taken humanity forward by centuries in terms of technological development. The Council was right to fear us, she told her assistant, Paul Davis. Look what we accomplished when our survival was at stake. Imagine what we can do now that we've broken free of their restrictions. Paul nodded. Do you think they'll try to bring us back under control, now that the Krell are leaving? They'll try, Kate said. But we're not the same people who joined the Council 30 years ago. We've seen what we're capable of. We won't go back to being held back. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. The Avrillian delegate addressed the gathered representatives, his blue face showing more emotion than usual. The situation with Earth has become a serious concern, he announced. Our observers report that humans have developed technologies that violate numerous Council prohibitions. Their genetic modification program alone breaks 17 different regulations. Murmurs filled the chamber as representatives discussed this news among themselves. The Avrillian raised his hands for silence. More concerning is their rate of advancement. In just 2 years, they have progressed from a level 3 civilization to nearly level 5. This is unprecedented and dangerous, a representative from a smaller world spoke up. They were fighting for survival. What did you expect? We expected them to lose, another representative said quietly. Or at least to remain dependent on Council guidance if they somehow survived. The Avrillian's voice grew stern. If humans continue their current development path and expand beyond their system, they will destabilize power structures that have maintained peace for millennia. What do you propose? Asked another delegate. They're no longer members of the Council. We have no authority over them. We must re-establish contact, the Avrillian said. Offer them membership with special concessions. Bring them back under Council oversight before they become a threat to galactic stability. Back on Earth, Laura Wright received reports of the Council's emergency session from her alien contacts. She smiled as she read them in her office in the rebuilt United Nations headquarters. Too late, she murmured. They abandoned us when we needed them. Now they're afraid of what we've become. She prepared a report for Earth's leadership. The Council's newfound interest in Earth was no surprise. By abandoning humanity to the Krell, they had created exactly what they feared most, a rapidly advancing species with no loyalty to the established galactic order. General Alan Blackwood read Laura's report with interest. Then he looked at the plans spread across his desk, designs for new warships, defenses for the outer planets, and outposts on worlds beyond the solar system. They had their chance, he told Colonel Helen Reed. We asked for help, and they abandoned us. Everything we did after that was necessary for survival. Helen nodded. What will we tell them if they come offering membership again? Alan's eyes were hard as he looked at the star charts showing possible expansion routes. We'll tell them that humanity has chosen its own path. We chose strength when peace was denied us, and now we'll choose our own future. As Krell ships began their withdrawal from the solar system, humanity looked to the stars with new purpose. They had survived against impossible odds. They had advanced beyond what anyone thought possible. And they had learned a crucial lesson. In a dangerous galaxy, strength was the only guarantee of survival. The Council had abandoned humanity. humanity, would not make the same mistake. The Council abandoned humanity, so we chose strength over peace. 3 years after the Krell invasion began, humanity stood not just victorious but transformed. The last Krell forces had left the solar system 6 months ago. Earth cities were being rebuilt with technologies centuries beyond what humans had possessed before the war. Most importantly, humanity was unified as never before. National boundaries had lost meaning in the fight for species survival. On a clear spring morning, a large alien ship entered Earth orbit. It was not a Krell vessel but a Council diplomatic craft. The elegant white ship had smooth curves and glowing blue engines, the advanced design of the oldest spacefaring civilizations. Its arrival was not unexpected. Earth's long-range sensors had tracked it since it entered the solar system. Inside, the rebuilt United Nations headquarters in Geneva, Earth's leaders gathered to meet the Council delegation. The large circular room had been designed to show humanity's new strength. The walls displayed screens showing Earth's defense fleet, newly established colonies on Mars and Europa, and the first human outposts beyond the solar system. Dr. Kate Sullivan stood near the window, looking out at the rebuilt city. 3 years ago, Geneva had been reduced to rubble by Krell attacks. Now it gleamed with new buildings made from materials developed during the war. Construction drones moved through the air, putting finishing touches on a quantum communication tower. "Nervous?" asked Major Greg Porter, who stood beside her in his formal uniform. Like all Phoenix soldiers, he looked perfectly normal until he chose to activate his enhancements. Kate shook her head. "Curious. I want to see their faces when they realize how much we've changed." Commander Jack Mason entered the room next, followed by General Alan Blackwood. Both men had become heroes during the war, their names known to every child on Earth. Behind them came Laura Wright, no longer an ambassador but now Earth's Director of Galactic Affairs. "They're here," Laura announced. "The shuttle is landing now." Minutes later, 5 Council representatives entered the room. The Avrilian delegate led the group, his blue skin looking pale under Earth's lighting. He was followed by representatives from 4 other powerful Council species. They moved with the confidence of those who had held power for millennia. The Avrilian's eyes widened slightly as he looked around the room, noting the displays of Earth's technological achievements. His expression became even more strained when he noticed Greg Porter and the subtle signs of the Phoenix enhancements. "We come offering peace and reintegration," the Avrilian said, his tone carefully polite. "The Council wishes to correct the unfortunate misunderstanding that occurred at the beginning of your conflict with the Krell." "It was not a misunderstanding," Laura interrupted, her voice cold. "It was a deliberate calculation. You deemed us expendable." The Avrilian spread his hands in a gesture meant to show regret. There were complexities in the galactic political situation that may not have been apparent to a primitive species like humans. Jack Mason finished for him. He placed a small device on the table between them. "This contains the specifications for our quantum displacement drive, the same technology you classified as too dangerous for lesser species to possess. We built it in 6 months." The Council representatives looked at the device with poorly hidden alarm. One of them, a reptilian being with golden scales, leaned forward to examine it more closely. "Impossible," he said. "That level of quantum manipulation would take centuries to develop." "For a species following Council restrictions, perhaps," Kate said. "We were fighting for survival. Conventional limits didn't apply." General Blackwood stepped forward. "We've established outposts on 17 worlds beyond our system, worlds you never thought we could reach." The Council representatives exchanged concerned glances. This was clearly more than they had expected to find. Earth was supposed to be devastated by the Krell invasion, not thriving and expanding. "The Council is prepared to offer Earth full membership status," the Avrilian said quickly, "with special development rights and representation on all major committees." Greg Porter, who had been silent until now, laughed without humor. "You abandoned us when we needed you most. Now you're worried about what we've become." Laura nodded. "We've learned an important lesson. In this galaxy, strength is respected. Peace is only possible from a position of power." She gestured to a large display showing a map of the galaxy. Several points of light indicated Earth's new colonies and outposts. These are not just human settlements. We've formed alliances with species the Council has marginalized for centuries. Species who remember being abandoned as we were. The Avrillian's face showed real concern now. You're forming a rival power block? This could destabilize the entire galactic community. Kate Sullivan's eyes were cold as she addressed the delegates. You abandoned us to die. Instead, we chose to become what we needed to be for survival. She walked to another display showing the Phoenix program results. We've evolved, both technologically and biologically. The Council tried to keep us dependent and controllable. That opportunity is gone. General Blackwood placed a document on the table. These are our terms. Earth will not rejoin the Council as a member. Instead, we will establish formal relations as an independent power. The terms shocked the Council representatives. Earth was not asking for readmission, but making a declaration. Humanity would form its own alliance of worlds, built on principles of mutual defense and technological sharing. Species that had been marginalized by Council politics were already pledging allegiance to this new power. This is unprecedented, the Avrillian said, his voice weak. A young species cannot simply, we already have. Laura cut him off. The human alliance includes 15 former Council associate worlds. More are asking to join each month. Jack Mason leaned forward. You feared what humanity might become if we developed without your restrictions. Your abandonment guaranteed exactly that outcome. Greg Porter stood by the window, looking out at the rebuilt city. We're not interested in revenge, but we will never again place our security in the hands of those who betrayed us. The Council representatives tried to negotiate, to find some way to bring humans back under their influence, but Earth's leaders remained firm. The decision had been made long before this meeting. As the Council representatives prepared to leave, the Avrillian made one last attempt. Consider the consequences of this path. Independence brings responsibility. The galaxy is filled with dangers. Worse than the Krell, Laura Wright smiled. We know. That's why we're building something better than the Council, an alliance based on mutual strength and respect, not control and abandonment. She walked with them to the door. You chose to let humanity face extinction rather than risk the established order. We chose strength when you denied us peace, and now the galaxy will never be the same. After the Council ship departed, Earth's leaders stood together at the window, looking up at the stars. The species that had nearly been extinguished had emerged not just as survivors, but as a rising power that would reshape galactic civilization. They'll try to undermine us, General Blackwood said. Pressure our allies, restrict our trade, limit our expansion. Kate nodded. Of course they will. They're afraid of change, especially change they can't control. Jack Mason looked at the star map showing humanity's growing influence. They should be afraid. Not because we want revenge, but because we represent everything they tried to prevent. A young species rising quickly, developing freely, and sharing knowledge they tried to restrict. Greg Porter smiled slightly. We're everything the Council feared, and we're just getting started. As night fell over Geneva, lights came on in the rebuilt city. Humanity looked to the stars with new purpose. The abandoned had become the unstoppable. The future belonged to those who had chosen strength when peace was denied them.